We are Gold Ivy, a health company dedicated to simplifying health and wellness. Tune in as we search to find the deep, real, and raw truth. We're here to talk big, no room for small talk. It is our mission to inspire, seek growth, simplify the action steps, and build confidence.
You decide what works for your daily life and how to transform our lessons into your gold. Are you ready to step into your power? Now is the time. Join us on the fearless pursuit of self-discovery and growth.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production.
If you're a regular listener of the show, or you follow us on social media, you know I, Brooke, just ran my first marathon, and Andrea ran her 22nd state in her goal to run a marathon in every state. How did I go from barely getting out of bed to being able to run 26.2 miles? A customized training plan and coaching with Andrea. With my health concerns, it was important for me to make sure I crossed that finish line safely and confidently.
We are so excited to announce that we are now offering customized training plans. Whether you're wanting to run a 5K, 10K, half, or full marathon, we've got you covered. Get your customized training plan plus coaching to get you race ready and keep you motivated along the way. Prior to receiving your training plan, you will meet with me, Andrea, for a 15-minute call to discuss your goals, race details, and schedule your 3 coaching calls. You will receive a training plan for your race, tailored to your schedule, endurance, and cross-training preferences like yoga, biking, strength, or whatever movement you enjoy.
Coaching throughout your training will provide accountability, safety, and inspiration to keep you pursuing your training and race goals. With Andrea, you will connect your mind and body to maximize your race experience. And if you're looking for a custom training plan without coaching, we're offering that as well. Head over to the shop page on our website, goldivyhealthco.com, to learn more and get you across that finish line.
Something that has made a world of difference for us and many people we know over this past year has been getting our groceries delivered right to our door. The ability to get local, fresh groceries without us having to step foot into a grocery store has been something we are so grateful for. Convenience, price, and quality are extremely important to us, and that's why we love and support INSTACART. INSTACART can deliver to your front door in as little as 1 hour. You can shop multiple stores, see deals in your area to help you save money, and every item is hand-selected by shoppers based on your preferences. To start your 14-day free trial and to get free delivery on your first order over $35, follow the link in the show notes to let INSTACART know that we sent you and to help support the show. INSTACART. Never step foot in a grocery store ever again. On today's episode of Ivy Unleashed, we explore a completely new world, astrology, with Emma Vasseur, whose work is delivered primarily through the modalities of craniosacral, evolutionary astrology, reiki energy healing, and integrative health coaching. It was so fun to hear how astrology affects our day-to-day energy, cycles, sleep, and how to use it to better understand ourselves. We asked Emma all of our burning questions about retrograde, horoscopes, how legitimate astrology is, and what Emma has learned about others and herself in her work. So buckle up for a deeper understanding of astrology's impact and how truly transformational stepping outside, looking up, and understanding your universe and self can really be.
Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. We are so grateful you are tuning in and want to acknowledge that we've had a dramatic increase of listens around the globe. If you haven't had a chance to check us out on social media, you can find us at Gold Ivy Health Co. for more tips and a daily look into our personal and professional lives. This momentum is very exciting for us. We are overwhelmed with gratitude and are so happy you're here because this episode is going to be out of this world.
Yes, we're super excited because we've just been noticing there's times where we feel super off or we feel unlike ourselves or we're not getting sleep. In my household, nobody is sleeping. And I'm like, what is going on? So I jump on Instagram and I'm talking on the story about how nobody's sleeping and everybody's like, duh, retrograde. And also Talk to Emma. Talk to Emma. So our guest today is a friend of mine, an old coworker of mine that's always inspired me. And her gentle nature and her contagious adventure spirit and her never-ending quest to keep learning has always just kind of made me gravitate toward her. So welcome to Ivy Unleashed, Emma Vasseur.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. What a sweet welcome. And I'm so excited to connect with you and your listeners and share more about what I know about astrology.
Yeah, and we are so curious because we know about horoscopes, and I'm sure the majority of our listeners have heard about astrology, have checked out their horoscope, what's their sign, and we actually had a reading with you to go even deeper because we are like, okay, what's the difference between these horoscopes and the work you do? How can this really be beneficial and be eye-opening experience for us? And so just to kind of start off with some clarity and starting at the basics, Emma, what is astrology?
Yeah, that is the question. What is it? And it is a very complex and elaborate field of study and practice, but I am going to very, very simply say astrology is the study of the sky and how it reflects our human experience. And it does that through the use of symbolism and archetypes to kind of help us to see and mirror like the human experience.
Awesome. And what brought you to astrology specifically?
Yeah, another question that there's a long story and a short story, but I'll share a bit about my journey to astrology. So I've always been really curious. And Andrea, thanks so much for saying that about my like adventurous spirit and like quest for seeking information and learning and all of that, because that's definitely a huge part of it. My whole life, I've just been curious. Like I always read my horoscope. I'm an Aquarius. I always thought it was really fun and interesting. And it piqued my curiosity. So I read books growing up and never took it super seriously. Just thought it was really fun and interesting. And then after undergrad, I kind of just felt a general, like something's off about life. I didn't feel like I was like fully engaging with my own life in the way that I wanted to be. So I've always been super curious just about, how to learn more about myself. I started going to therapy right after college, and my therapist then referred me to a life coach. And then through all of that, I did my own study with massage therapy and then coaching. And so it just opens your mind and your eyes to so many different things, like alternative, healing modalities and things like that. I've worked with many different practitioners and all different kinds of modalities. But it was in 2016, I believe, when I had my first reading with Jessa Walters, who is an evolutionary astrologer and has since been my teacher and mentor and huge just inspiration as to why I got into this work. I'd had readings before that, but my reading with Jessa was really the catalyst that inspired me to really immerse myself into the study of astrology, because it was my reading with her that really I felt so seen and so just validated and affirmed and inspired to, I guess, really step more fully into who I am and what I'm here to do, and take more responsibility for, how to support what I wanted to go after in my life. And we can get into this too, but it also helped me to really connect the dots around like how to take care of myself physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So yeah.
That's beautiful. I think that's the whole point of digging into this is it helps you know yourself more. And like you said, if you can connect the dots on what really makes me tick, what keeps me feeling well, healthy, connected to myself, you interact with the world differently and more intentionally, and it just feels so good. And so I'm curious how you would convince someone that doesn't know themselves well, why this is so important to get in tune with yourself more.
Yeah, I think first, unless they were coming and asking, I probably wouldn't try to convince anyone that they should get to know themselves better. If there's already a genuine like openness and curiosity, or they're just presenting some sort of like frustration or feeling stuck, then I could definitely maybe plant a few seeds around how connecting more deeply inward to the self and really getting to know yourself can be a huge catalyst for just a more meaningful life, but, deeper relationships with yourself, getting to know yourself, what you need and what you want will then lead to just more authentic connections with other people. And then it'll also help you to understand, again, what you need, not just emotionally with relationships, but also physically, spiritually, mentally. I think getting to know the self is the very core of living fully, a vibrant, whole existence and experience.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And
Yes.
the world is so noisy. We look to others for validation. We look to social media for validation. Everything's so noisy. And sometimes people, they do get the success by other people's standards or what they thought they wanted, and then they feel empty. And it's coming back to practices like this where, Brooke and I had a reading with you, and I was crying. Weird, I know, I cry all the time. But it was like feeling so seen by another tool.
And also knowing that you're in the right path, that these things make sense, that, you almost don't have to question yourself because you're like, okay, this does make sense. I am this way and I'm supposed to be this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally. Because something that Emma said to me was basically my life's mission is to gather knowledge and share it. Mm-hmm. And here I am bringing Emma into the world for people to learn from them. So it's super exciting. And you also talked about my childhood and nailed it on the head that it was super chaotic. And you nailed it on the head what gives me comfort and even directed me towards Taurus, which is my husband's sign. And there were so many things that, you have to have a reading to really understand the complexity of this. Mm-hmm. But I just want to emphasize, digging into having someone help you know yourself more is just so valuable and so worth the investment and the time.
Yeah, for me it was, starting Gold Ivy and Ivy Unleashed, and I knew that what I was going through with my own health was going to help someone, but it's hard when you're in the midst of it, and I'm still, I know my answers, but now I'm trying to find what works for me and to stick with it. And it's still a big part of my life is feeling good. And I think it'll be a lifelong journey. But when I did my reading with Emma, it was that my health is a part of my mission and being a light worker and also wanting that darkness and those signs that are a little dark, because I want to get to the real raw, because that's where I know the truth is and I'm not afraid of it. And I value my, alone time to recharge. And so exactly what Andrea is saying, it's almost like someone's putting a mirror in front of you. And we've talked about that with kind of different healing modalities, but it's just another opportunity to really know yourself. And when you know yourself, you're unstoppable. What I'm curious though, Emma, is, people have read their horoscope and you can get so many free downloads online and it's exciting. It's free. I'm curious the difference between that, your horoscope, knowing your sign, and the work that you do, because you talk about how your sign interferes with all different signs and it's very complex. And so I'm curious the benefits of working with you versus just getting your horoscope online.
Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking. There's a lot of value in all of the information that's available online, of course, through mainstream kind of astrology, pop astrology. And this is something that a dear friend of mine actually, and another astrologer who I've learned a lot from, we've had this conversation before just about how astrology is really changing these days. Like the field of astrology is so different today because of how much is readily available and accessible to anyone with internet access. Yeah, it can be fun. It can be exciting to read horoscopes and engage with it that way. But the difference between that and working one-on-one with an astrologer or doing your own self-study deeper and looking at your own specific chart is just the nuance and the detail. Horoscopes are written broadly. It's for whoever is in that sign. And there's kind of just broad strokes of what's going on with that particular energy, where the sun is at that time. So when you're working one-on-one with an astrologer, working with me, I look at the whole chart and it's very specific to the whole chart, the sun, the moon, the rising sign, and any other planets, any other angles. There's a lot that needs to be taken into consideration to be able to give like a full reading, and one that can be that impactful. So of course, like horoscopes can be valuable and insightful, and there's lots of great astrologers who create incredible horoscopes. But yeah, the biggest difference is just how kind of fine-tuned and specific it can be in working with, more specifically with an astrologer.
And how does it actually work with like the moon sign and the sun sign? Because I always thought you just had a sun sign, like I'm a Sagittarius and here's my horoscope. But then we also have our moon sign. Is it the energy, or how, kind of walk us through very high level, if you were to do like a chart reading, just kind of like the basics for people who they only are familiar with their horoscope?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll do a really high level kind of boiled down basics of like when you're looking at a chart, what all these things mean. So in the birth chart, you have the signs, you have houses, and then you have the different planets or celestial bodies. Like the sun and the moon, of course, aren't planets, but for the sake of this, I'm just going to lump them into the category of planets. Planets each symbolize a function that wants to be developed within each of us.
Can you give an example?
Yep. So for example, like the sun's function is to give us kind of this operational, coherent image of ourself. In other words, like healthy ego. Because as human beings, in this material world, it does benefit us to have like some solid ego, or like a sense of I am. So that's an example of the sun. And then the moon, because you had mentioned, we all know our sun sign. The moon's function is more of the emotional realm. It is our heart. It is what nourishes us. It is what feeds us emotionally. It helps us to understand, like if we do get overwhelmed with emotion, how we might show up in the world if we're overcome with emotion. The sign and the house that it's in can help kind of paint a picture, which the value of that then, of course, is like having self-compassion. Like for just as an example, me with a Scorpio moon, Scorpio is like the most intense feeling. And so if I have something in my life that impacts me emotionally, and my emotions are all of a sudden so intense, and I'm just like so overwhelmed, now I know like that is part of like what I signed on for to experience in this lifetime. So that's the moon. And then each planet has its own function symbolized, in the chart. And so the signs are like the motivating energy. They're the drive that fuels the development of that function. So whatever planet is in a sign, that sign is giving us information about what types of experiences will support the development of that function. So as a Sagittarius sun, Sagittarian types of experiences would support you in feeling like you have a more solid sense of self, like a self-image. This is who I am. This is what I like. So a Sagittarian type of experience would be like questing for knowledge or seeking meaning. Sagittarians also really love freedom.
Not me at all.
So that's the signs and the planets. And then the houses, then, what those symbolize are like the domain of life or the arena of life where that function wants to develop. So let's say your sun is in the 4th house. The 4th house is the house of like home, domestic life, where you can feel at home and safe. So not just actually physical home, but also like being at home in yourself. So making sure you're nourishing yourself with what you need to feel like at home in yourself. It's the house of like nourishment and belonging. It's also about like the family of origin. You can learn a bit about just like family of origin stuff in the 4th house. Like if you have a lot of planets there, that means that you're really trying to gather all kinds of experiences related to the 4th house or the house of home, family of origin. It's deep.
Yeah. What I think is cool about it, because I didn't know this before, keep saying I only really knew about horoscopes, and I knew that everyone's horoscope is the same based on when you were born. But what's different is where the planets are when you're born. And so that's what makes it different for everyone. And so although your horoscope can be the same person who had a birthday the day before you or the day after, when you're having this detailed reading, it's about where the planets were. And that's what makes up you and your experiences and kind of like that map of your life in a way. I'm curious, just the people that are like, this is kind of woo-woo-y. In our reading, you talked about how way back in the day when astrologers first discovered this, there wasn't all of the social media and the outside noise, and we were really connected with nature. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit on that for people who maybe are a little skeptical on why this is so important and legit.
I guess first, maybe this is just says a little bit more about me. Like anyone that's skeptical, I don't want to waste any time trying to convince anyone. If it's not for you, that's cool. Like, don't worry about it. But I also am super interested in just supporting people and connecting to it because it has made such a big difference in my own life. And people that I do work with, like, really share how much it has impacted them and how much value they get from it. So if someone's on the fence and they're interested in hearing about maybe why it's a legit thing, and speaking to what you were saying, Brooke, about as astrology was kind of first coming into formation thousands and thousands of years ago, the world wasn't as developed as it is now, and people were much more in touch with the natural rhythms and ways of being in relationship with the earth and with the whole universe. And of course, back then you could only relate to as far as you could see. And so when astrology was first being developed, they could only see us to a certain point, certain planets. So in time, as the telescope was invented and we could start to see other planets, it's just really cool to see when that planet was being discovered, what else was going on in the world and how those two, the planet and what was going on in the world, their relationship. Anyways, yeah. So what was happening was the people that were really just, I guess, curious, or it's just an innate drive in all of us, right? To understand the human experience and understand ourselves. And so that was the way that they did it. They just recognized patterns in nature. They recognized patterns in the sky and started to map out how they reflect one another.
So clearly it's been years and years of people studying this, and there's so much information out there. But what I'm curious about is how it's affecting me, driving in my car, trying to sleep in my bed. How is wherever Mars is or what's happening with the moon, get my kids to stay up all night?
Yes, great question. And I will just say first, this is why getting to know your own birth chart is so important, because if Mars right now in the sky is over here, it might be impacting me in a different way than it might be impacting you. So I just want to say that. But how that works, the way that I see it, and I'm sure there are really brilliant scientists and physicists that could say this in an actual scientific way, but I'm going to give you my version, which is the way I see the human body, there's millions and trillions of cells in my human body, right? And if you zoom in close enough, it looks like it's its own little universe in there. There's actually that much space between each cell. And so the way I see it is just from outer space, you've got this one cell that is a planet. And then you zoom in and then you've got all these other cells that are the human beings and the plants and the animals and everything. And then you keep zooming in, blah, blah, blah. And then you keep zooming out, blah, blah, blah. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Following? Okay. So I am one cell in the organism of the earth, which is one cell of the organism of the solar system, which is one cell of the organism of the universe. And as health coaches, we know that anything that I do, I eat an apple, that is going to impact each and every cell in my body. That is going to impact my energy. That is going to impact the way my organs are functioning. It's going to have an impact in all of the ways. And so Mars is out there doing its thing, going around the sun just like us. and carries its own energetic influence. Mars is a fiery, hot planet. And so if Mars is doing something in the sky that's stimulating you in a certain way, it might be stirring up some heat, some aggravation, some inflammation. It might be helping you to take more courageous action in one area of your life. If it's transiting like the 9th house, for example, maybe you're going to take a risk that you've been always wanting to take, but have been afraid to take.
And I'm curious, like how there's 5 of us though in my house, and how like what the moon is doing affects
Everyone?
Yeah. Or is it just affecting my kids because of something, and then
maybe it's you. Maybe you're the problem, and your energy is affecting the kid. I'm just kidding.
Maybe.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Could be.
I mean, there's research that shows that the moon impacts the water on our planet, right? Like the tides are related to the moon. We are 75% water, or more or less, you know? Yeah. And so as the moon is doing its thing, it's impacting our composition, our fluidity, our energy day to day. And so the moon goes around every 28 to 29 days is one full cycle of the moon. So some people might be more impacted at the new moon phase. Other people might be more impacted at the full moon phase. And again, that's why it's really difficult as an astrologer to put like huge full moon means this for everybody, or new moon means this for everybody, because again, it's just, where is it in your own chart? What kind of moon do you have? What phase was the moon in when you were born? Like all of these things impact how it might be showing up for you in the day-to-day too. So the household impact, though, I want to speak to that. And I also, before I forget, want to come back to this retrograde buzzword. Yes. So 9 times out of 10, probably, if you're seeing retrograde on Instagram or like on social media, it probably is referring to Mercury. So Mercury goes retrograde most often. And first, I just want to say what retrograde actually is. Like when we say the planet's moving backwards, like that's what retrograde is. The planet isn't actually like stopping in its tracks and moving in a different direction. It's just from the vantage point of Earth in the sky, it looks like it's going in a different direction. So because of the math, you know, of how we're moving around the sun, all the planets are moving around the sun at the same time, and we're rotating at the same time. When we're observing Mercury in the sky, it kind of goes in this like back and forth, like as it's like going. So when it appears to be moving backwards, that's when it's retrograde. And this is true of all planets. All planets can go retrograde at certain times, having to do with, again, rotation, revolution around the sun. Mercury retrograde has such an impact, A, because it's like super close to Earth, and B, because they've actually found that Mercury has a pretty strong magnetic composition. So as it gets closer to or farther away from us here on Earth, it's going to influence the magnetic pulls and pushes. And that's why technology seems to get a little glitchy, because it's kind of messing with the magnetic vibrations that technology works on. So this is what's true of like all of the planets. They all have their own unique vibration, their own unique energetic composition, and how it's influencing us here on Earth is what astrology is all about, basically.
So I'm thinking of like my kids sleeping and this magnetic pulse come in, and it just makes them move stuff around or changes something inside their body, so it wakes them up because they feel like, whoa, off.
They're just like out of balance because of this pull?
Well, it's interesting because Mercury retrograde is also going to impact everybody differently. If you were born at a time when Mercury was retrograde, you might actually feel best when Mercury is in retrograde. So again, this is where like pop astrology can do a disservice, because everyone's like, oh, doomsday, Mercury's in retrograde. It's like, that's not always the case. I didn't have Mercury in retrograde when I was born, but I love Mercury retrograde because I love an excuse to like slow down and reflect on some stuff. And that to me is what retrogrades are all about, is an invitation to really slow down, think more consciously, engage more consciously with whatever the invitation is to reflect on. With Mercury, Mercury is the planet that symbolizes like the mind intellect, communication, but also beyond that, like perception, how we form ideas, how we share ideas. And so when Mercury's retrograde, it's really an invitation to, again, slow down your mind. But it also might be then, it's really difficult to communicate. It might be really challenging to like outwardly express. So if Mercury's retrograde and you're noticing your kids are not sleeping during Mercury in retrograde, it could be that it's just, really impacting something in their own individual charts. But then there's also, you can get really into it and look at like the chart of your family. Like you can combine charts together to see what's going on as a unit, as a whole. Throw in a whole nother,
we're gonna sit down as a family of 5 on Zoom with Emma. I love that. And I love what you said about taking that opportunity of like just once, like Brooke and I do, we know nothing about retrograde, so we're talking with you and learning about it, but also taking a moment to say like, how is this affecting me? Mm-hmm. Is it affecting me? And just taking the opportunity to learn about yourself. And we know from chatting with you that you always take those opportunities to challenge yourself, to learn more about yourself, to literally move to a part of the country that is challenging for some reason with astrology. And so I would love for you to talk about kind of where you're at with your self-reflection, using what you know about astrology, where you're living, and kind of just elaborate on that because it's really interesting.
So for me personally, right now, like the immediate way that I'm engaging with what I know about myself astrologically is that I moved to a place so it's called astrocartography, where you can look at the map and see where planetary lines kind of fall. So I like to think of it as like in traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, like the meridians, like the energy lines that go through the body. You've got your spleen line, you've got the liver line, all that. With astrology, you've got like the Saturn line or Neptune line. And so, so I moved to a place in the United States where I have 2 intersecting lines, my Saturn line and my Chiron line. And Chiron in astrology is known as the wounded healer. And so when you're working with Chiron energy, you're going to be facing like this perpetual wound that might not necessarily ever be healed fully. But the antidote for it is compassion. Like you just have to keep surrendering and like hurling yourself into compassion. So self-compassion is like the medicine that I'm really cultivating at this time in my life. And Saturn is like your self-discipline muscle, basically really boiled down. There's a lot more that I could say about Saturn, but Saturn forces you to kind of slow down and makes you aware of time, really challenges you to take responsibility for yourself and your life and what you want. Because if you don't, it'll throw some wrenches in the mix. So I moved to this place knowing it might be a challenge because I guess that's just what I'm about. I figured if I don't look at these parts of myself or sit with these wounds or learn about self-discipline, I'm missing out on some pretty great opportunities to cultivate some deeper skills. And then it's also really helping me to like really learn about, sometimes it's right just to like walk away or like not poke yourself so hard. So that's kind of like a more personal anecdote about what's going on beyond just the chart for me. But from the very beginning, with astrology, it's like anytime I learned about Aquarius or anytime I looked at my chart and learned more, it's just like a deeper unfolding. And I think one of the primary reasons why I love astrology and why I do it professionally to support other people is because we come into this world innately whole, sovereign beings, but we're born into a society that tries to tell us who we are, how to be, what to do, what we need, what will make us valuable and worthy of existence, when it's like a bunch of BS. So with astrology, it's like such a deep opportunity to be like, oh, this is who I came here to be. I think this will be a perfect opportunity to also say the chart itself does not dictate reality. like your own level of awareness and engagement and choice. Like, that's why I love the branch of astrology that I study, which is evolutionary astrology. It operates under the assumption that like everyone has free will and you get to choose. And the chart itself is just a window into possibility, potential, like what energies are there. Do you want to work with it or do you not? And no judgment either way. Like, and I found for myself at looking at it and engaging with it has made my life more enjoyable, more like exciting, more meaningful. Like, I just am more authentically me. I can like give myself permission to be a little bit weirder than maybe I was comfortable with because I was too afraid of what everyone else thought of me, which was all in my chart, and just helped me to be like, oh, it's okay that I struggle with like people pleasing and caring a lot about what other people think, because that's just what I came to work with and work through and like expand beyond or evolve beyond and out of those habits. So
yeah, I love that. It just speaks to how powerful it is. And when you're open to it, how life-changing it can be. You know, I think of personal development. I think of all the tools I've used and I'm continuing to learn. It's really about coming back home to who we were put on this earth to be, what's authentic to us, what feels right, and knowing that there isn't a right answer, but the right answer is what feels right to us. And so as you were speaking, that's what I kept thinking of is it's this mirror of compassion and acceptance and I don't want to say approval, but permission almost to be yourself to help you come back home.
Oh, you guys. Beautiful. I love what you're both saying. And what I'm thinking of is that, like you're both saying, if you're open to this experiment of, you know, I feel like so much of the world is shut down. Like, no, you don't do the Enneagram. Like, you know yourself. And if you think more about it in a way of you're just exploring what makes you tick, why it's so hard for you to like not care what people think. Sometimes it's just harder for you, and to know that we all struggle with things and we all have strengths, and to kind of dig into what they are and just have the compassion for the struggles and really see how you can amplify your strengths. It's such a beautiful thing. It's so cool to see you own what you're good at and own what you're bad at and be like, it's okay, I'm bad at that. And then we can all kind of open up more about it and then chase our dreams more, or stop doing things that don't make us happy because they just don't. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that.
All about self-discovery. Mm-hmm. And if you're open to it, why not be open to it?
Yeah, you never know what you'll find out and where your life will lead you. I mean, you've been all over the world, Emma. I love it. And I'd just love for you to speak a little bit more about the people that you've worked with and kind of transformations you've seen or what you've discovered, because I would kill to be sitting in on all these readings that you do, because it would be so interesting what comes up for people. And so what have you kind of discovered in this work?
Yeah, it's first of all such a deep honor and privilege for me to be able to sit with people in this way and see them in this way. Like, it's a deep act of trust and openness and vulnerability. And I think that's probably one of the most like beautiful parts of this work is just, you know, you come onto I've been doing it over Zoom. So you come onto the screen and there's just this kind of like sitting back, and a few times, you know, people are just like, okay, sure, what is this? And then I just start sharing what I'm seeing, and it's like, you know, the walls are kind of broken down almost immediately, and people are just like, wow, I haven't, you know, felt this scene, or like, how do you know this kind of stuff? And the heart kind of like the softening around the heart that can happen, and just like the opening that happens there, and just leaving the sessions with kind of this recognition, like they feel recognized, or just like the permission and allowance of like owning this part of themselves. You see a lot of that. There's oftentimes tears, and just like people are moved by it. So yeah, I think I see that a lot in working with people. One of my favorite things is like seeing people being like, oh, yay, I get to say no to that thing, you know, because it's like super equally important what we say no to as to what we say yes to. If someone's been unhappy in a career path, for example, and there's something in their chart that's like just calling out to like talk about career stuff. Yeah, they just feel like, okay, here's this dream I've had that I've never told anybody. I'm going to sit with it. And it's just like, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. And I feel so, again, just so honored to be able to see parts of people that they might not get to share with other people or in different parts of their life. People just being moved and excited or just more resolved to kind of face a challenging thing that maybe they've been like having difficulty with or something.
Sounds like taking back their power. That's what keeps coming to me, is that permission, that softening of the heart to get vulnerable, to see things in a different lens, and then to get back and own their power, which is what we're all about with this podcast and the work we do. And that's why we chose you to come on, because we know that the work you do, the tools that you have, help with that mission as well.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. And another thing that we're all about here is connecting the mind and body. And you have so many pieces. I mean, you are so knowledgeable. We could sit here for 6 hours and talk about what Emma's trained in. So you have coaching, you have, astrology coaching, you have somatic practices, you have craniosacral therapy, massage. I don't even know what else that you have, but can you kind of talk about how all these pieces of your work kind of come together to help people heal?
What's at the root of everything that I do is the fact that the body is self-healing. Like, we are self-healing, and that change is possible. We just have to create the conditions for change to happen. So through my coaching work, which actually stemmed from, first I was a massage therapist. After my undergrad, I was still like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Got my first massage ever. And I was like, oh, I guess this is what I want to do. I want to support people and like waking up to this like wealth of like wisdom and knowledge and insight and information that is the body. So I went to school for massage therapy, started doing that. And then again, there was like this missing piece though. I want to support people in understanding that like in their day-to-day life, they can be doing things to like minimize the pain they're feeling, to feel more relaxed and engaged with their life. Cause you get people coming back with the same aches and pains, and then I'd get frustrated, which has more to do with me. But so then I was like, coaching is the thing. I can sit with someone, be present, help them to connect to their own truth, their own life, what's getting in the way, what vision do they have? Do they even want to change? Like, if not, that's cool too. So yeah, so really supporting people and creating the conditions for change to happen in the direction that they want to go. And so that's when astrology came into the mix too, because it was another great tool, another great resource to just be like, dang, like what is getting in my way? Or like, who am I? What do I want? What do I care about? What do I value? And like you'd said earlier, Andrea, about astrology just being an opportunity to reflect more deeply inward, because I do believe like that's the key, is like inner awareness, just consciousness of self is where we can find all the answers for like, what does it mean for me to feel alive and healthy and well? What does it mean for me to be in a relationship that feels good and supportive? And what do I want from relationships? Like, so that's how astrology came into the mix too. And then craniosacral has the same philosophy as coaching in my mind. Like, craniosacral is just sitting and being present with someone and witnessing the self-healing process. It's like craniosacral, as a craniosacral practitioner, I just get to sit there and like, I listen with my hands, which might sound strange, but it's like, I can feel different rhythms. I can feel different places of like heaviness or stagnation or lots of energy just by putting my hands on. By doing that and being present with the body and feeling for where's the health, and just inviting the body to lean more into that through craniosacral. That's how it's like kind of the similar philosophy as coaching, just like getting to be present with someone, following the thread, feeling and listening to where there's like stagnation or blocks or beliefs that might be limiting or and inviting just an openness, following the health, I guess, again, there too in conversation. So in my mind, they're all kind of one and the same thing, but just different through different lenses and through different kind of tools and strategies.
I'm just hearing more. It's more than just the mind and it's more than just the body. And you have to connect the two of them. And there's so many ways to do it is what I'm hearing. I'm also hearing that you're just like a lifelong learner, that it's never ending what you know and what you're willing to tap into, but knowing that the main idea is to heal. It's to quiet everything else and take time for yourself is what I'm hearing.
And helping people see their inner wisdom and their inner power and ability to heal themselves with your guidance. I'm curious, the craniosacral work, is it kind of like energy work, how you're releasing that energy with your hands, or is it based on what you hear, then you give that feedback to your client and tell them what to focus on or to work on, or how does that work? Like, what do they really get out of it?
It's another one of those things that's just like, you got to experience it, I guess, because there can be conversation, like if I notice something, but I'll always ask questions. Like if I notice something in the body, most often I won't really say anything because it's like the body is having a conversation with me almost. It's like if I put my hands on someone's feet and I'm feeling like no energy in their feet, and for me, no energy in their feet might mean that they just feel really light. There's like not a settling happening. There's not like the gravity doesn't feel like it's like at their feet. And so I'll just sit there. I'll sit there and I'll listen, and I will just like, I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just like through my own presence, inviting their body to like bring some energy down into their feet if they want to. And usually, after a couple minutes, like there'll be a shift. The body will respond. The feet will get heavy. And everyone is capable of this. So I don't mean to sound like I'm some special human that can listen with my hands. Like you both could do this. It's just doing it like you would any other, like learning an instrument. You've got to actually put in the time and the presence and the like engagement with it. We all have this ability. So the more I do it and the more that I've done it over the years, you just develop that fine-tune ability to sense into different shifts in the body. And so that's what's happening with craniosacral. I'll put my hands on, very gentle touch. I'm not doing any kind of like with massage, there's more kind of like you can knead and kind of work with the soft tissue, but in craniosacral, I'm just putting my hands on really gently, and it's really subtle. But the shifts can be really profound. You can unwind lots of years of built up energy and trauma, car accidents, like kids that had braces, and now as adults, they're having these issues, jaw issues, like there's stuff you can do with that. So yeah, it's a really another profound healing modality that really is just about being present with what's there and trusting the body to just take over. Again, the creating conditions for change, like presence is like the number one condition for change to happen. Like if you're feeling really sad and depressed, it's like you gotta like be present with it, because the more we try not to be sad or try not to be depressed, it's just pushing it aside to build up even stronger, and it'll come back in a different way or turn into something else,
Totally. So. It's just showing me, I feel like Brooke and I will always be employed and always have more episodes to record, because there's so much to learn. There's all different ways. And I think, like we've said multiple times, it's being open to what could help you heal and what could you learn about yourself so that you're not suffering as much. And knowing it might sound a little weird just to have somebody put their hands on you and just see what happens. Like, I'm like, oh God, what would she learn putting her hands on my feet? Oh God.
But it makes sense, because I've gotten so in tune, and I'm still working on it with my body, with my healing journey. And, you can tell where things feel stagnant or where they're energized or where things feel like loose. And, we are just energy. And so it makes sense. It takes wanting to learn about it, being in tune with it, that practice. It's empowering also to know that there are so many different things you can do, like you said, Andrea, to end your suffering and to get help and take back control. And the ones you listed are just a few, but they're powerful. And for anyone who would want to try any of these modalities with you, where can they find you?
Yes. So I'm on the internet. I've got a website. And you can book with me there for astrology, for coaching, and then craniosacral, of course, is in person. I do distant Reiki, which is an energy practice. So, but yeah, my website is just my name, emmavasseur.com, and it's French, so it's an EUR. And then I also am going to start writing like a monthly newsletter. That is going to be the most like up to date, like ways to work with me, where to find me, just random thoughts that I have. Well, maybe not just random thoughts. It'll be relevant to like what I do and why you might want to sign up for the newsletter. Instagram, I'm there, but it's kind of like you go there and you're like, what is this? What is this account about? That's how it feels to me right now, because a big part of the last couple of years for me has been kind of like pulling back from being engaging on social media. I'm really trying to connect more deeply with my own voice, and to engage with people more directly that I know and that know me. And then if they come across my website and we don't know each other, they can, sign up for the newsletter. It just feels more intimate and more the direction I'm going, but I'm sure I'll be there again. But yeah, that's just, again, my name, but there's a dot and an underscore and a dot in there because apparently there's more than one Emma Vasseur, and a lot of them are in France, which is cool.
Well, awesome. Well, we will plug all of that in our show notes and blog. And we're excited to hear more of your thoughts. So we would love to hear your 3 gold stars.
The first one is, as it relates to astrology, the first gold star is to get to know your whole chart. Like, not just your sun sign, not just from Instagram memes or, automated reports, which again can be great and they're lots of fun, but really working with an astrologer, reading books, like doing your own deep self-study, and then also just like going outside and looking up at the sky, look at the moon, like build your own relationship with the planets. Like, that's a whole nother thing. That could be a whole nother episode in and of itself, is just like the relational quality of like getting to know the planets. So the second star that I have is to just really pay attention to what energizes you and pay attention to what depletes you. And then you can do whatever you want with that information once you gather that, like what energizes you, what depletes you. And then the last one, I think, just comes from like me being an Aquarius. Aquarians are, they say, like, march to the beat of their own drum. So my third gold star is to find the beat of your own drum and dance.
I love that.
I love it. And I love that they're stars.
Yeah.
Well, we have our next segment is Unleashing Ivy. And these are our 3 surprise rapid fire questions. So we're going to learn even more about you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, Emma, you have traveled all over the world. And we're curious what that's taught you about yourself.
Oh my gosh, so much. The biggest thing that it's taught me about myself is that I am always home. Like, my home is deep in here. Like, I can be anywhere in the world and I'm home. So I think that's like the biggest thing.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes, I love that.
It's creating that inner safety and your peace.
All right, my question, because you're such a lifelong learner, maybe just like in this next 5 years of your life, this chapter, what are you kind of hoping to learn or like deconstruct, or, what are you really working on when it comes to your lifelong learning?
Yeah, okay, this one's a little deep. So my biggest thing right now, I'm pretty good when I'm by myself. Like, I'm pretty self-sufficient. I enjoy my alone time. Like, I don't really get bored. But when it comes to like intimate relationships, I tend to abandon myself like that. So this whole chapter is really about, I think, cultivating that deep sense of safety, even when I'm in relationship with another person in that really intimate way. Because I've noticed that I put up a lot of walls, and there's a lot of like fear of vulnerability or fear of being really seen when that's really deeply what I crave. But yeah, so I think that's this chapter is really about, just letting the self, this like the relationship that I'm cultivating here and now carry into my relationships too. And not just like, I don't just abandon myself.
That.
Me too. Okay, last question. What's one thing you wish you would have known sooner?
Oh man, so many things again. But I think one thing that's especially relevant to the work that I do too, like simply being present with another person is more than enough.
Say that again.
Yeah. Simply being present with another person is more than enough. Yeah.
Wow.
Because that really stems from just like I think a lot of us can be conditioned in this way, especially those of us that have been socialized as women and female. We have to help to be of value and be worthy. And I think that's just not true. I actually had a teacher in my grad program who said sometimes helping another person is the worst thing you can do for them. And my mind was blown. And I still have to sit with that sometimes because I'm like, wait a minute, what? But yeah, that could be a whole nother podcast episode. I feel like unpacking that.
Yeah, I heard that too, kind of put a different way of it's a disservice because you're messing with their own path, that everyone learns at the exact time that they're supposed to through the exact means that they're supposed to. And so by you interfering when you're not meant to interfere, it takes away from kind of their experience and what they got out of it.
Yeah. And I think for me, related to that, it's like, that's why the simply being present, like wishing I had known that, because that can be, if someone's coming to you and they're in distress, and if my automatic assumption is that they want something from me or they want help, like, and then I start to go into that, they could be sitting there being like, you're not hearing me at all. Like, that's not why I'm saying any of this, So that simply being present with another person can be life-changing for people, because when are we taught presence?
Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm so glad you said that. That I'm going to be absorbing that one for a while because I do feel like I need to impress. You have to look a certain way. You have to say the right things. You need to bring a certain type of energy or food to the party or whatever it is. And so thank you for saying that. And thank you for being here and taking on this massive topic that we could have talked about for 72 hours. We appreciate your time and for doing a reading with us that was a game changer. I cannot wait to schedule another appointment with you. And so we just really appreciate you being here with us.
Yes, thank you so much. And everyone listening, go check Emma out. She's amazing. We want you to experience what we did when we had our reading because it was awesome. All right, Emma, we hate to see you go, but we want to hear your gold. We leave our audience with a piece of gold. So would you like to share your gold with us?
Yes, I would. This is a James Baldwin quote that speaks to my Scorpio moon heart. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.